Hi, my name's Chris, and I'm originally from California. My wife and I moved out here to Beaumont, Texas for work. I'm going to give you my testimony today and tell you how I became a Christian. My mom always drugged me to church as a kid and all that, and then in high school, all the way up to there, I was rebellious and didn't want to accept any of that. So in high school, I ditched school one day and took my dirt bike out, and it was, a new bike to me. It was a lot bigger than I needed to have, and all my friends bailed out on me, so I was out, 40 miles from town, alone. Nobody knew where I was before everybody had cell phones. And I got myself in some trouble where I should have flipped the dirt bike and landed straight on my head. I still can't figure out how I didn't do that, but from that point on, after I'd landed on my feet or landed on, the bike with the rubber side down, I at least acknowledged that there was some sort of greater being. I didn't know who he was or what he was or she was, but I had to acknowledge that, Darwinism and evolution and, there not being a God, that couldn't really be the case. So that kind of sat in the back of my mind for a while. I started to read the Left Behind series by Tim LaHaye and some other guy, and that kind of scared me into kind of becoming a believer. But then I got into a church and met up with some people and kind of got my foot in the door, and I started reading the scriptures on my own and seeing what those were all about. Throughout the course of being a believer, I've had another experience with a dirt bike where I was out 5 hours away from my house at a place called Sand Mountain. Was riding up a sand dune, and it was early in the morning. No one else was around. It's another thing, as a rule, I almost never do. I came up to the top of a sand dune. It was kind of a razorback. I'd actually high-centered on these type things where neither wheel was touching the ground before, so it was real steep. Well, I went flying off at about 30 miles an hour, and I didn't know that the top of the hill was coming because all I could see is the top. I thought it rounded off. Well, I go flying off it, and as soon as the front wheel dropped, I chucked the bike just to make sure it didn't fall on me. It fell, I kind of blacked out, didn't know where I was or whatever. I knew I hit the ground, and when I got up, I couldn't kickstart my own bike. I couldn't get it going. I tried that for probably 10 or so minutes. Time kind of stood still, and I was coughing up some blood, so that wasn't such a hot deal. I thought I'd punctured a lung, but it ended up didn't happen. But what I did, I sat there and said, okay, God, I can't start this bike. So I got down on my knees and I prayed, and I'm like, God, get me off this mountain. I can't do it myself, And I heard this kind of voice inside me say, go up on the top of the hill and wave someone else down. Tell them you need some help. So I did that. They had me back to camp. From there, it was 17 miles back to a hospital. Got all taken care of. I had a broken clavicle, a bunch of internal bruising and all that stuff, but ended up that I was totally fine. So God protected me huge there, taking a 30-foot spill, barely getting hurt. I had a big bruise that didn't show up for a whole month on my chest from where my knee came up and hit it. So pretty crazy story, that if I would have landed on my head, I wouldn't be here, And then God even had the grace and the forgiveness to let me survive it and basically walk away without anything majorly wrong. So that's how I became a believer. I'll tell you a short story on how my wife and I came out to Texas to be part of this church. Right now the economy is doing real bad. I work for a company called Fluor Daniels. They've got a job out here. I got sent out as the rest of the project in California shut down. And it was supposed to be a 7-month assignment. My wife is, she's about 7 months pregnant now, and my de-staff date from Texas is about where my wife's, due date is. So I'm supposed to be going back to California sometime around when we're having a baby. So that's a bit stressful, but I know that God's in control, and He's the one that's brought us out here, and He's blessed us in giving us this opportunity instead of having us be laid off. So I know He's in control, and that He'll do, maybe it won't be what we have in mind, but He'll take care of us, He'll bless us, He'll use us, and I don't entirely know what He's got planned for us, but I know it'll be good on our behalf, and it'll be good for whoever He has us out here to bless. So that's most of the story there. So once again, my name's Chris, and I'm talking to you from the Elegante out here in Beaumont, Texas.